So, this movie is entitled Business Before Pleasure, but we're in the business of making math books. So, it really depends on how you look at it. I kind of find dispersing math knowledge to everyone very much a part of my pleasure life. However, you may be thinking something like a beach. Maybe you're thinking boogie boarding. Well, when you weigh the two, really the algebra books are heavier. But whatever one you decide, we're going to be working on our math book production first. So let's go ahead and take a look at the business of math book making. The cost to make each math book is $25. In addition, set costs are $3,000, and those set costs include factory rental, the workers that you pay, the electricity, all of the big print machines that you have to buy, and you want to sell each math book for $65. Write equations for the cost and revenue of the books. Find out when you make a profit. So for the cost of books, that's how much it costs you to produce each book, in addition to those set costs. The revenue is the money coming in. Now, you're not taking into account how much it costs for each book. It's just the money, like in the cash register, after you're selling books. Now, remember, when you're writing equations, it really helps to look at specific examples. And we're going to start with one book. So the cost to produce one book. Well, we know one book costs $25 just to produce, like for the paper and the binding and everything else. But we also have to take into account those set costs, that $3,000. Even if we just make one book, we still have to pay the rent on the building and for the big machines and equipment. Now let's look at our revenue. So if we have one book, if we make one book and we sell one book, the revenue, the money we're going to make, is $65 times 1, or just $65. So the total cost of my books is $3,025 and the revenue is $65. Let's look at another example. Say we sell 10 books. Well, to make 10 books, just the cost for each book is $25 times 10. We're making 10 of them. And the $3,000, oops, I forgot a dollar sign there, stays the same. And that would equal, let's see, $3,250. So that's how much it costs to make those books. Well, now let's look at our revenue. How much would be in our cash box? $65 times 10, or $650. So notice my money I'm making is less, it's a lot less than my cost of my books. So if I only sold 10 books, this whole operation wouldn't be worth it at all, except for the fact that we get to do a lot of math. So let's try 100 books. So if I have 100 books, I have $25 times 100. That's how much it costs just for the paper and the bindings and everything else. And then I still have that $3,000 I have to pay my rent and electricity. And so that gives me a total, let's see, 2,500 plus 3,000. That gives me a total of $5,500. That's how much it's going to cost me to make those books. Now let's look at the revenue. So our revenue is $65 times 100. We're making 100 books. And that's going to equal $6,500. Now if you look at that, I actually have more in my cash box than I spent. In fact, I've made $1,000. Now if we look at these values right here, these are changing. These are variable. So I have the amount, my money right here that's variable, and I also have the amount of books, which is variable. So we're going to let our variables equal those things, and we should be able to write an equation that no matter how many books we have, we can find our cost and our revenue in terms of variables. So we're going to let X equal the number of books sold, and we're going to let Y equal the money. Now this Y is different than this Y. So we have to recognize that. Sometimes when we do that, we can talk about it as being a function of. So we have C of X, and that's just going to represent my Y money from the cost equation. And that also says that my cost is dependent on the number of books that I make. So this Y, remember, is different, and I'm going to call this R of X, or my revenue. Now let's just look how that function notation works. So that C of X, I can find the cost of one book. And that's the same as my Y when X equals 1. The cost of 10 books is equal to 3,250, and the cost of 100 books is equal to 5,550. I can do the same thing with my revenue. R of 1, that's how you say that, is equal to $65. R of 10 is equal to $650. R of 100 is equal to $6,500. Now let's see if we can write an equation for C of X and R of X. So C of X is equal to, that's the cost of X books, is equal to $25 times X, that's the number of books sold, plus $3,000. That gives me my cost for any amount of books. So C of X I can write also as C of X equals $25 times X, and I don't have to put those parentheses because I have a variable times a number, a coefficient right there, plus $3,000. And let's do the same thing for our revenue. R of X is equal to, well, I'm taking $65 times the amount of books, X. And I can just rewrite that as R of X equals $65 X. Now let's look at this. This looks a lot like our lines. So let's look at our cost equation. We can actually find the slope of this. So every time we go X over here, every time we go 1, we are adding an additional $25. So my slope is $25 over one book. And my y-intercept right here, where I'm starting this line, is $3,000. So my B is $3,000 in this cost equation. In my revenue equation, I have $65 per one book. Remember, just $65 is the same as $65 over 1. And my y-intercept right here is 0, because I'm making $0 if I sell 0 books. Now we're going to use these equations in order to figure out when I'm making a profit. I know at 100 books I'm making a profit, but am I making a profit before that? We'll take a look at that in the next few videos. All right, on to more pleasure. Business. Let's get down to business.